physically and mentally it is quite challenging.
Whoever wins this race will take the lead in the championship.
I don't think any other sport offers you that much adrenaline rush at a particular weekend.
JK Tyre's association with Indian motorsport began 3 decades ago, when the company took a conscious decision to lay down a long-term and sustained approach to promote Indian motorsport.
Back when we took this constructive decision that we are going to invest on motorsport, and the company got the whole package together. I was from the motorsport background, I was inducted in. We were from an era of rallying, and it was after 7 successive years that we realized that if you need to give a fillip to the sport, if you want the sport to be looked at by common man, you need to go back to the drawing board, you need to go back to a stadium sport. And that's how in 1997 we got this whole package together of racing, where we had a 800cc powered single-seater racing car, and we used to have Maruti Esteems as our saloon category. This is how we started, with very humble background. And as they say, rest is history.
And over these 3 decades, through the efforts of its motorsport division, the company has been associated with events in all forms of motorsport in India. From the JK Tyre Rally of Coimbatore, which is part of the National Rally Championship, to the TSD format JK Tyre Hornbill Rally held annually in Nagaland, and most recently to the JK Tyre Arunachal Festival of Speed, held for the first time in 2014 in the town of Dirang in Arunachal Pradesh. In the racing format, JK Tyre has the distinction of hosting the JK Tyre Racing Championship, which is now in its 17th year, and the JK Tyre Rotax Max National Karting Championship, which has been going strong since the past decade and is currently in its 11th year.
Although there were some big boys who were kind of ready to take this game, but if you wanted the sport to find its feet, so we needed to get go-karting into India. And that was the same time in 97 December that we opened our first 4-stroke karting center. And this whole program then evolved on year basis. And in 2000 we also had our first karting championship. So even the karting program now is in its 14th year, and this racing program is in its 17th, actually 18th year, because first year we ran it as a contender to the championship. So it's been a long journey.
In all these years, it has been JK Motorsport's endeavour to break away from the elitist image that the sport has, and to make motorsport in India more affordable, at the same time to ensure that it is at par with international operating standards, and promoting Indian motorsport talent and making India a force to be reckoned with in the world of international motorsport.
You see, today we are in the bestest of situation, because I don't think we should look at this championship or any other scenario. We should look at Indian scenario, and we should be very proud that we have this fantastic entry level 100% Indian car, and as I said, is the cheapest form of racing that is available in the world. So come to the Indian driver. He has now got a program. He starts from 4-stroke karting in the backyard of his town, graduates to 2-stroke, graduates to LGB, graduates to the higher levels. So I would say if a kid has it in him, he can train himself in this country and actually now launch his career from F3 and above when he goes abroad, which was not the scenario earlier.
They say the third round in a 5-round championship is the best chance race drivers have to redeem themselves. You've not been able to do too well in the first 2 rounds, but after having driven those 2 rounds, your rhythm is improved. And if you can hold off everyone else and win consistently for the next 3 rounds, the championship is yours for the taking. I'm Abhishek Singh, and we are standing at the home track of the Mohitesh Racing Academy in Kolhapur. The Friday practice for round 3 of the JK Tyre Rotax Max National Karting Championship is underway, and the drivers are desperately trying to get the setup just right on their karts. This round, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be make or break, which means that it's going to be a lot of fun.
Being the only CIKFI affiliated proper racing track in Kolhapur, in India, it's quite technical. Like we have fast corners, practically saying you can have Coimbatore and you can have Hyderabad over here. You can't be fast on one thing and be slow on another. Like in my heat 2, we missed a little bit of setup, which made me stay behind a competitor for 4 laps. So you have to be very smart on it. You can't fidget with the kart a lot. You can't try new things. You have to know to get that. And then after a point, it's like if you're 3 seconds slow, your kart can take you 1 second, but the rest 2 seconds is the driver. It's challenging, but at times it's easy. But you have to manage it quite well. And not only being the home track, but everyone enjoys driving over here.
The Mohitesh Racing Academy track in Kolhapur is a place which has been the training ground for some of the country's most talented race drivers. These boys have not just made the city of Kolhapur proud, but have also raced internationally under Indian team colours in multiple world championships. One of the most formidable drivers to come out and race from the city of Kolhapur is Jitesh Mandodi. Mandodi is known at racetracks across the country for his aggressive driving style and his uncanny ability to pull off the most astounding overtaking maneuvers. We caught up with the local race hero and his doting father and spoke to them about their journey.
He showed a lot of interest into this karting. So we have got a automobile. Actually, I am from automobile base only. So we have got an automobile workshop also here. So that's how we started. I started pushing him, and because of his interest, we started taking him to the track every day.
Mandodi and his father form an intimidating duo, and together they've managed to bag multiple karting and racing championships.
First 2 days I'm struggling a lot with the car, but then on the final days, qualifying and all, my car is ready and it's giving a proper times.
There are a lot of parents at the track cheering their kids from the sidelines. But Sachin Mandodi goes a step further. He is now the team principal for Mohitesh Racing and the manager of the Kolhapur track where he hones local talent.
2007, when this track was built, Mr. Shivaji Mohite was a friend of mine, a family friend of us. Because being into automobile, he said, if you're looking into it, so why don't you take care of this track? Why don't you train the children? Why don't you be here on the track? That's how I came into this field, and I started looking after the children, training them, looking after track setups, everything. I was in Malaysia for about a month or so, learning about what the setups and different things, and that's how I totally gave myself into it.
Motorsport is not a cheap thing to indulge in, and despite having support from a lot of quarters and having tons of talent, compromises need to be made.
He's always been supported by Mohite Racing, JK Tyre and Akbar. Every time, every year, without me telling anything, it's always given to him. It's always been there. That is the reason that we could afford, or I could take him till this end.
Welcome back. Now Kolhapur is hosting the national championship after a gap of 3 years. Some of the drivers have forgotten what it's like to drive here, and for some, it's a completely new track. It is also a supremely challenging 1.2 kilometers to drive on. Will the drivers be up for the challenge, or will the track get the better of them? Let's find out.
What a fight we're having out here. Contact them. Vishnu and Jitesh on the racing line with each other. Leland's going to see Jitesh, but he's going to get on the offensive. He'll take the leader again. Jitesh takes it again.
After metric tons of drama in the pre-final races and the heats, where the drivers went all out trying to secure the top slots on the grid and hold the advantage, it was time for the moment of truth. The first final race of round 3 was the Micromax category, where Yash Aradhya had seemed formidable in the first 2 rounds, and Yash carried forward his form to round 3, winning both the heats and the pre-final races. The Meko Racing driver led the final race from the start and looked set for another victory. But he had a determined Paul Francis breathing down his neck, bumper inches away, and Paul began closing the gap steadily. And then he pulled this off. In the very last lap of the race, on the very last corner, Francis saw a gap open up and dived in, stealing a victory right from under Aradhya's nose and taking the checkered flag. And while this fight was going on up front, Shahan Ali, who was served an unfortunate technical disqualification and began his race from the end of the grid, overtook 8 drivers and finished a respectable third. Given a few more laps, the lad looked like he would have given both Francis and Aradhya a run for their money.
My aim was to get a podium in this race, and on the last lap it was very difficult to overtake Aditya. He made a mistake and I got a chance to overtake him. On the left-hander over there, I went out a bit by defending a lot, so I had to brake late and then went out, and Paul just made an amazing move and he surprised me and he just went, and I tried to catch up, but it was the last lap.
It was a monstrous task of catching up to Yash, and I thought I still had hope, and I pushed as hard as I could, and on the last lap I managed to make a move.
Kushmani of Dark Dawn Racing drove with clinical precision in the final of the Junior Max category and maintained his stellar form from the heats and the pre-final races. He was a comfortable winner over BPC Racing's Ricky Donison and Rayo Racing's Aro Rabindra. Donison gave Manny a tough fight as usual and tried very hard to catch up with the more experienced Manny. But in the end, it was all in vain, as Donison proved to be no match for Manny's blistering speed. Manny also extended his lead at the top of the championship points table.
Push! Many everybody, put your hands together, come on, Kolhapur!
Managed to get close to him at the start and stay with him for like a few laps, get the fastest lap, but again, he had better consistency than me, and off the corners, like my setup wasn't as good as his.
So when I was in the grid, everyone was on new tires, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be hard. But then I said, okay, and champions never give up, so let's drive and let's see what happens. Every time I pulled off a gap, they would take a little pressure off me, and that time has a little breathing space. But when I went past the line, it was like amazing feeling.
Former national champion Ameya Bafna of Rayo Racing was recovering from a bout of malaria when he came to the Kolhapur track for round 3.
Has he lost a spot or two here? We've already seen that very big test.
After hard-fought bouts in the pre-finals, Bafna secured the 3rd starting position on the grid. And in the highly competitive Senior Max category, the action begins right from the start. Local track hero Chitesh Mandodi of Mohite's Racing suffered a broken tyre rod in the very first lap, and Bafna capitalized and jumped into the lead. Over the next 20 laps of the race, Bafna held the lead convincingly, and he didn't even come close to relinquishing it to Rayo Racing teammate Nayan Chatterjee, who was having a hard time keeping Meko Racing's Vishnu Prasad at bay. The local crowd after Mandodi's unfortunate incident was further let down, as Dhruv Mohite, who drove an aggressive pre-final race to finish 2nd after starting in 11th place, could not repeat his form in the final and had to settle for 4th place.
Finals, yeah, starting 4th, I always knew I was going to, drop a place or two, because starting from the outside, I mean, it's almost impossible to keep your place, and Nayan passed me, so did Rahul, and I managed to make up 1 place and come back to 4th. After that, me and Dhruv kept fighting, tried to catch up to Nayan and Ame. Chitesh had a bad accident in the tough luck to him. But finally we couldn't, but I managed to make a move on Dhruv and finish 3rd.
I'm Akshay and this is round 4 in Kolhapur, Mohite's Racing track.
After having had considerable track time on the Kolhapur circuit and learning the tricks of getting their setup right, the drivers of the 11th JK Tyre Rotax Max National Karting Championship returned once again to Kolhapur for round 4. As usual, the first final was the Micromax category Tykes fighting out brake pad and throttle in their bid to gain racing glory. Yash Aradhya of Meko Racing was in the lead, being chased down by Paul Francis and Shahan Ali. But at the back of the grid, this happened. 8-year-old Kunal Vinod lost control of his kart and crashed into the tyre wall and flipped close to race control. The race was red flagged and Aradhya, who was in the lead, was declared the winner. Kunal was unhurt owing to the high safety standards at the championship. He was left a little shaken after the incident.
Yeah, you're okay. You're perfectly fine. And Chirag drove very well, but in the finals, They showed the red flag due to some racing incident by Kunal. So I was leading the race, so they showed the red flag and half of the race was done. So I was considered as a winner. Started the finals from 5th because of the collision in the pre-final, but I had a good start. I was focusing on defending Chirag also because he was also behind me, and it was very difficult to defend him. And but in the red flag, the race was finished before 4 laps.
Push as hard as you can, get the best results of qualifying heats and the finals.
In the Junior Max category, championship leader Kush Maini had just returned fresh from the Karting World Championship after securing a respectable 4th place. He was in top form and the Dark Dawn Racing driver was all set to decimate all competition. But at the Kolhapur track, setup was everything. And in the end, a faster kart would matter. BPC Racing's Ricky Donison had been giving many hard fights since the start of the season. And this time was no different. Donison flew ahead of Maini to take the lead and the ghost of Hyderabad came back to haunt the lad. Maini could do little as Donison drove brilliantly to increase his lead and take the checkered flag. Maini may have retained the championship lead, but after the final race of round 4, Donison had little to prove as far as racing prowess was concerned.
My mechanic, we've been working on my consistency all weekend, getting like every lap, every time the same every lap, and well, it paid off. I wasn't that consistent yesterday, but today I went out, every lap was the same time, and my mechanic was telling me to, that the calmer you are when you're driving, the more consistent you are, and that's how you win a race.
And I had to start last 15th, and first corner I messed up and I was still 15th by a long way, so that one lap was already gone there, which made the difference. And then I was catching, overtook everyone on track, there was no incidents, and I came second.
Racing with these guys also give me a lot of experience because they're quite hard to race with and they're very competitive. So it's quite hard. It's a new good thing that they're there. Otherwise, what's the point of having a race when there's no one with you to have a competition?
Kolhapur boy Chitesh Mandodi was in dominant form over the weekend and he retained it in the final race. This was his home track, and here the already formidable driver was at his racing best. These were the racing lines he grew up with. They had been perfected and then some more. Here he could drive blindfolded and still be hard to beat. And he proved as much in the Senior Max final race. Lower down the grid, Mandodi's teammate Dhruv Mohite was having a turbulent spell all through the pre-finals. Mohite started 5th on the grid for the finals and battled his way to the 3rd spot. And behind him, Rayo Racing's Nayan Chatterjee was in hot pursuit. Chatterjee began piling on the pressure after 15 laps, and Mohite was having trouble holding him off. Both lads went bumper to bumper in the last 2 laps, before Chatterjee in a last-ditch attempt tangled with Mohite in the final lap and spun out. Mohite had a clear drive to the checkered flag, but protests were filed by both teams and the drivers were later penalised 10 seconds each by the clerk of the course for attempting to force the other driver off the track, and Mohite lost precious championship points. It worked well for Rayo Racing as it gave their driver and championship leader Amir Bafna a huge lead in the points tally.
Actually, not intentionally, I got a big bump which forced me a little out of the track. He made a move which I knew it's the last lap, so I could have taken him anywhere. But if I would have blocked him, we both would have gone out. So I decided to join him. But as you know, it's a fast chicane, and if you're taking it from inside, you got to be slow. So he slowed down, and there was an impact which forced him out of the track, which was not intention from me, which was also cleared with the COC some time back. But I guess I managed through. And as I said, I was expecting him, but not in this way.
In the 5th round, we can see a nail-biting finish if everybody keeps their carts intact and nobody has a DNF or nobody has a mechanical problem, because it's so close. It could be anybody's game, and I think we'll definitely have a nail-biting finish in the final round.
And that brings us to the end of the Kolhapur round, like I said earlier. And with the Kolhapur boys, we'll see you in Vizag. The JK Racing Championship is one of the most prestigious racing championships in the Indian motorsport calendar. The series is in its 17th year now and has the distinction of being the starting ground for some of India's most talented and illustrious racing drivers.
I don't think there's another parallel example anywhere in the world where there's a sponsor who's carried a sport on its shoulder for 17 long years.